Hi, this is Sally Morgan, physical therapist, craniosacral therapist, and Tellington T-Touch practitioner for animals and people. And this is Tristan. He's a Corgi, and this is an episode of Conversations with a Corgi. And we are now on episode 115, where we will be talking today about the crown chakra in our pets. And Tristan is a special featured guest about this crown chakra because he has the lucky fairy kiss. Do you want to show them, Biss? I don't know if you can see that, but see this little brown spot? It's right on his crown chakra, and they call that in the Corgi world a fairy kiss, which means these little dogs that have been associated with fairies since ancient times, and the fairies ride them and drive them. If they have a fairy kiss, that means they are a special dog favored by the fairies. So in fact, Tristan is a special dog because he has a fairy kiss, which happens to be on his crown chakra. And we have our chakra flag hanging on the fence today, and here you see the 1,000-petaled lotus with the white light in the center, which is symbolic of the crown chakra. The crown chakra has been associated with enlightenment and spirituality, and it is a very, very important one for our pets and for our relationships with our pets. It's on the top of the head, and it's our spiritual connection to our higher self. And it's also a really important chakra to know about if you're working in hospice with pets or if your pet is passing over the rainbow bridge. Frankincense applied to this spot during an animal crossing the rainbow bridge can really be easing to them and help them find their way to the other side with comfort and ease. So keep that in mind. The crown chakra is our connection to others and to the divine, and it is considered the highest spiritual center, and our state of pure consciousness resides there, and it is the top of your head. And at the top of your head there is neither subject nor object, but divine oneness, and this interconnection with all other living and past things, all oneness, spiritual connection to all spirit and all oneness is in the crown chakra. And the idea of great bliss is associated with the crown chakra, because when you get to that point in your life, it's like the Maslow hierarchy of needs. You have self-enlightenment and self-actualization. So you are actually beyond yourself because you have all of your have resolved all of the other needs of your physical self when you get to your crown chakra. And the statement associated with the crown chakra is, of course, I know, because you are aware of all things divine and spiritual, deeply connected to your higher self. So you can remember we had I see and I speak and some of the other ones on the lower chakras. This one is I know. And it personally is creative and sensitive for people who have this, connection to the crown chakra. It's inspirational, and it relates to the pineal gland and the lymphatic system. Skin rashes and emotional problems are also related to the crown chakra. And that's an interesting thing for me as a craniosacral therapist, the skin rashes, because your central nervous system and your skin develop from the same embryonic tissue. And so your hair and your skin is deeply connected to your central nervous system. So this connection through the crown chakra is really important. And if you are struggling with a pet who is facing skin problems, first of all, find a better food, because often they are struggling with food issues. But second of all, you might want to use some of the essential oils and crystals I recommend today to help your pet connect with their crown chakra and connect to the oneness and their higher spirit. If you recall from when we were talking about the flower essences, many of the components of them were about connecting your pet to his higher self. And if your pet has had to be in a life or death struggle before he came to your life as a rescue, it's really important that we connect with our higher self to get reconnected to the oneness that really is part of every animal's life, and humans for that matter. It is associated with self-sacrifice, visionary, and a strong mentality. And that's really important, again, to remember that sometimes our pets that are struggling the most, that have had a really difficult time fitting in, are in fact going to be our greatest teachers. And I've talked about Dina, the dog, who came to our T-Touch classes a few times, and she was a pit bull mix, and she was really having struggles with other dogs. And the first time I met her, and her person Susan worked with her for a year, and when she came back, she was a different dog. And part of that was being able to connect with her crown chakra and resolve some of her emotional problems. And when her physical needs and desires and emotions were met by Susan's great care, she was able to become a great teacher and a visionary from the animal world. And so many of our struggling pets, like Dina, can become some of our greatest teachers. So it's important to keep that in mind. The day of the week associated with the crown chakra is Monday, and the element is spirit. So for the first 5 chakras, the elements were the metal and, the 5 elements of Chinese medicine. But when we got to the third eye, we added light as an element, and here we're adding spirit as an element. And the sense here is knowing. We have the 5 senses for the first 5 chakras, and then we have the intuition for the third eye, and we have knowingness for the crown chakra. And that's an important thing, because when you are connected to the one and following your intuition and balanced in your other chakras, you do know what you need to do with your life, and you do know the path you need to follow with a pet that you might be working with who has some issues. The essential oil associated with the crown chakra, of course, is the beautiful lavender. And it's one I use a lot in my practice with animals. I often put a drop on a piece of tissue in a room where I'm working with an animal. Sometimes that's enough. Just opening the bottle near a horse can be enough. Sometimes I'll wear it on myself if I'm working with an animal, particularly with their crown chakra, or if I need them to relax and go into that connection to their higher self. Because a lot of times when animals are acting with behaviors that are very upsetting, your horse can't stay on the cross ties, or your dog is twisting and turning and unable to focus when he's on his leash, something like lavender can connect them to their higher self and help them find a quiet place within so that they can focus on what you're working with them for. And of course, the wonderful crystal associated with the crown chakra is amethyst. And I have this amethyst heart here that I'm so lucky to have. And it really is pretty. You can see all of the crystals on the top. Of course, we're not having any sun today, so you can't really see how beautiful it is. And then the other crystal that has been associated with the crown chakra, of course, is the quartz. And the quartz really is a great crystal because it intensifies the activities of all of the other crystals. So if you use quartz in conjunction with another crystal, any other crystal, it will intensify its power. So, of course, the quartz crystal could be well associated with the crown chakra because that's where you're getting that inner knowing. And we are out here today with the beautiful echinacea, the coneflower behind me, which is also a wonderful shade of purple. As I said, the crown chakra is the 1,000-petaled lotus, and it's also called the 1,000-fold chakra. And it's related to infinite awareness that emanates from consciousness within. You are awake with a conscious intelligence and a divine knowing and infinite awareness. You have no limits when you are connected to your crown chakra. The still mind will unfold the petals and spark illumination. The Kundalini meets her divine Shiva here. These are gods, and that is where we got the stars and the heavens and the journey of the cosmos. So there is, again, that idea of union with the crown chakra that we saw with the third eye chakra, with the 2 sides of the body, black and white, male and female, masculine, feminine, yin and yang. We have all of that echoed in the crown chakra as well. And the crown chakra is associated with the intelligence of creation itself and universal consciousness that is the source of all. And again, I can mention Larry Dossey's book about oneness and spiritual oneness and connecting to all that is. And that is when you are in your knowing. It's beyond intuition. It's when you have a certainty with your decisions or your thoughts when you are relating to your crown chakra. And all the chakras are united in the crown chakra. It is energized and fully illuminated because of the energy working up from the lower chakras all the way up to the higher chakra of the crown chakra. And it's got the idea of from the one, many, and from the many, one. And so all the many aspects of you create one consciousness, and from that one consciousness you are then connected to the many consciousnesses of all that ever was and all that ever will be and all that is. And we are the bridge between here and there. We become the rainbow bridge itself through our crown chakra. And this is really important when we're working with pets. It's really important if you do what I do, working with a lot of hospice pets and senior pets, to keep your crown chakra happy and functioning and open to the oneness of all that is. And anyone who's done this for a long time, like Michelle at Monkey's House, you become very spiritual because you have to stay connected to the higher purpose, the higher power, when you have a lot of dogs crossing the rainbow bridge, because it is so heartbreaking. And if you can't get out of simply your heart chakra and find the higher knowing and understanding and lessons from all of these little beings that we get to know, then it's really, really hard on you. So it's very important to stay in your crown chakra when you're working with any kind of hospice care, or if even your own dog when he's crossing the rainbow bridge. The sound associated with this chakra is which is M, and it's associated with the planet of Uranus. And its archetype is the wise woman or the sage. And certainly many, many people who have animals and who relate to animals, who are women, can relate to this idea of the wise woman and the knower of the beasts. And certainly fellows can relate to the idea of the sage. And there are many wonderful men working in the veterinary profession and other animal professions who are leading the way to look at our animals with compassion and respect instead of dominance. And it is the thousand-fold lotus flower, and the color associated with it is violet. And it relates to individuality, silence, inner balance, ease of self, peace, and love. And that idea of silence is important because it connects you to the higher consciousness. And if you are chatty in your brain and unable to relax and focus and let your thoughts just come and go, you can't connect to that higher, peaceful consciousness that is the one of all. And crown chakra relates to concern for others, and it's also associated with the color of white for cosmic energy and goodness, which is why I said we have that white in the center of the mandala, and also the quartz crystal. Rock crystal is also associated with the crown chakra, and of course it's located on the top of your head, and it has to do with self-respect. Because if you fully respect yourself, you will respect all of the beings in the world around you, and that will help you connect to the higher consciousness that is the great oneness. And the primary drives are to surrender to spirituality and divine guidance and unite your personal experience with the collective. And that's that idea again of from the many, one, and from the one, many. And it connects us with our higher source and allows us to be transcendent with spirit and thought. And through the crown chakra, we engage our intellect and receive those sudden flashes of illumination, and we can experience enlightenment, which is in fact nirvana and true happiness. So I have some stories about the crown chakras for you. First of all, there is a whole conversations with a Corgi about my purple hair, but I will mention it again because it is super relevant to the crown chakra. And my friend Bernie Siegel also shaves his head because, as the monks do, it keeps him connected to the divine, connected to the all that is, to the great one, so that he can not have any interference between his divine thought and his higher self. And so shaving your head allows monks to be connected to their higher selves at all times. And that's one reason Bernie shaves his head. Of course, he worked with children with cancer and people who had cancer who had no hair, and that was an element of it. But from his perspective, it wasn't about just being one with his people that he was working with. It was about being one with all that is, because I said, when you are doing hospice work with animals, and many are crossing the rainbow bridge, you have to stay in your higher self or you're not able to help them. You can't let yourself be brought down by your emotions of sadness. And it's definitely easier when it's not your animal, but when it's one you've worked with for a long time, it can be really difficult. So like Bernie, I have kept my hair purple now for 10 years since I had cancer and had no hair, because I feel like it allows my crown chakra to connect with the higher spiritual being of the universe and to keep me connected to my higher self, so that I am only doing things that are serving the higher good and the higher consciousness. And it's really important to me to keep my hair this color probably for a long time. And so today we were a little late because my hair was getting a little pale lavender and I had to make it purple again so that we could talk about the crown chakra. But that is the reason my hair is purple, is to keep me in my higher consciousness at all times. And when I met Bernie, I came into one of his cancer support group meetings and he stopped the group to ask me why I was wearing what was my purple wig that looks like my hair. And I said, I don't know, because it's on my crown chakra. And he laughed and said, that's a good thing, you're a spiritual person, because purple is also associated with passing over. And certainly Bernie and Elizabeth Kubler-Ross have looked at drawings from people who have life-threatening illnesses. And if they have purple in certain quadrants of their drawings, whether it be a kite, a flower, a light, a moon, whatever it is they draw in the picture, that placement can indicate that they, in their unconscious mind, are indeed ready to pass over. So purple is a spiritual color, and it can mean that you're, following your higher self on this plane, or that you're ready to leave and go to the next plane. So it was really important to Bernie to find out that someone coming to his meeting who had a cancer diagnosis was not ready to leave this plane and was in fact just finding and connecting with their higher self in order to stay here and do work that can benefit others. And so that's why my hair is purple. And my relationship with Bernie Siegel, of course, blossomed from that, and he is certainly a wonderful influence and inspiration in my life. And one of the horses I worked with, we were doing hospice care for this horse, which is a very difficult thing to choose to do because it's really hard and it takes a long time for a horse to cross the Rainbow Bridge sometimes. And this horse wasn't dying of colic. He just had all kinds of other things going on, and he was unable to get up he was up and down for a couple of days with great difficulty, and then he just got down and he couldn't get up anymore. It was really important to his very, very spiritual, connected to her higher self person that he not be put down before his time. And certainly we had many great lessons from him during that process of him crossing the Rainbow Bridge. But one of the most important things was monitoring the motion of his chakras, and as his lower chakras stopped their spinning and quieted down day after day, and we got to his crown chakra, that in fact is the last part of you that continues to spin after you do cross over. And so, as I mentioned before, I was using frankincense and lights. He couldn't see anymore, but lights in front of him to help him find his way across the Rainbow Bridge. And using the frankincense and a pendulum and Reiki on his crown chakra was able to keep him quiet and help him find his way across the Rainbow Bridge and find his higher consciousness and find his way back to the ancestral herd where all horses come from. And we were able to, my friend Tracy and I, we were calling in the spirits of horses we had known across the Rainbow Bridge, and he greeted them, each one in a different way, moving and whinnying and pawing a little bit as they came to help escort him over the Rainbow Bridge. And the frankincense and the work on his crown chakra was certainly an important part of his crossing after he had spent some time talking to Tracy about his higher purpose and what he wanted people to know before he crossed the Rainbow Bridge about the abuse of racehorses and the suffering that he had endured, and his gratitude for his people for not asking very much from him in his many 20 years plus with them, because he just had nothing left to give after his 3 or 4 years on the track. So it was a really important thing to work with his crown chakra, help him cross over, let him speak his truth along the way. And certainly with this particular horse, which I've written about in my book, Dances of the Heart, Connecting with Animals, available on Amazon, we worked through each chakra with each of his needs and desires and his lessons to leave us and the lessons he had learned from each chakra all the way up to his crown chakra before he crossed the Rainbow Bridge. And again, frankincense, I used lavender on some of his lower chakras, and to keep him calm, he loved having some lavender near his nose to help him stay in his higher self when his body was failing. But certainly frankincense has been used to cross the rainbow bridge for many generations, and it's a really powerful smell to use at that time, or an essential oil. So these are some of the things about the crown chakra that you may want to keep in mind for your pets. Certainly, if your animal is crossing the rainbow bridge, it's nice to have some amethyst near them. If your animal has a head injury, amethyst, again, can help resolve any kind of stuckness or sluggishness going on in the crown chakra. And certainly with our horses, we see many head injuries, but dogs too. They play so hard and they're so active, and they play with each other hard. You may have a small dog like mine that likes to play with the big dogs, and he could have had some times when his head was banged. And animals are generally really connected to their higher power and to the oneness of all that is, and to the ancestral pack or pride. But in fact, sometimes they experience an issue where they are not free and moving and spinning there well. I've had some animals with some really bad life-threatening illnesses where their crown chakras were just really stagnant, and sometimes helping that reawaken and connecting them back to their higher self allows them to stay here a little bit longer. So the crown chakra, knowingness, universal oneness, connecting us with the higher self and the all that is, and the spirit. So important. It is our highest self, our best self-expression comes through the crown chakra. And as you can see, it's the 1,000-petaled lotus flower represented here. So we will be wrapping up our discussion of chakras with an interesting talk on Conversations with a Corgi about the 8th chakra that Marguerite Coates and some others have discussed in relationship to animals. And so I really want to include that in this series because not everyone knows about it, and it is really fascinating. And you can, if you're a person that does Reiki or craniosacral therapy or Tellington T-Touch sometimes, any number of healing modalities, you can feel the energy of the 8th chakra in your animals. And so it's a really important one to be aware of when you're working with your animals. And so we will be talking about that at our next chakra discussion. I don't know when that's going to be, though. Maybe Wednesday morning before I leave to drive down to the Cape, because tomorrow we will be at the Corgi Fun Day, and we will be talking about corgis and fun. And so we probably won't talk about this 8th chakra tomorrow, but certainly Wednesday, possibly Friday, we can talk about it on Conversations with a Corgi. And I want to remind you again, we are offering a craniosacral therapy class for dogs at the wonderful Monkey's House in Pemberton, New Jersey at the end of September. Please go to my website for the particulars. There's also a couple of posts on this Facebook page regarding that class, and they're also posted on my regular Sally Morgan Facebook page and also on the Craniosacral Therapy for Animals Facebook page, which I also run. So please don't forget about that class, and pass it on. Even if you don't want to do body work on animals, or you only have one dog and it's not important to you, pass it along to your groomer, your vet techs, chiropractors, massage therapists. Even if they're working with humans, many of them would like to expand their practice to work with pets. And this is a great opportunity to work with the wonderful dogs at Monkey's House and to give something back to these little beings who give so much to our lives every day. So this has been Sally Morgan and Tristan Corgi for an episode of Conversations with a Corgi, where we have been talking about the crown chakra, which is in fact why my hair is purple. And we'll see you tomorrow around 9:30, I hope, from the Mayflower Corgi Picnic in Connecticut. There's a little fairy kiss. Thanks for joining us today, where we have been talking about the crown chakra in relationship to our pets and our spiritual relationship to them and to the all that is. And we will be back tomorrow. Have a great day. They're saying it's going to be cloudy and not actually raining, and so that's a good thing here in New England. Have a wonderful day.